The Tanya opens up with a question of what does it mean a middle person? What is this idea of a Benoni, an average person? This is its opening question. And why this relates to what we were just talking about, we were talking about the idea of unity, is that it's very important to identify who and what we are. A lot of times people, myself, I look at myself and say I am something that I'm not. I premeditated ideas, beliefs, or concepts that aren't accurate. Therefore, I build expectations. Now, expectations are predispositions for disappointments. In other words, if you have an expectation and you don't fulfill it, you're disappointed. On the other hand, we know we're supposed to set goals. We know we're supposed to aim for things, strive for things. How can we strive without setting up an expectation? I would like to achieve. And the first biggest negative with an expectation is not setting a proper expectation because we have wrong standards. In other words, if I say I am a righteous person, then I assume that my expectation should be a certain thing. And when I cannot live up to those expectations, I get disappointments. If I assume because I'm a righteous person, therefore when I pray I should automatically be spiritually inclined to feel the nuances of movements from my words, the effects it has, the angels that are created and then burned up from spiritual affect, etc., and it doesn't happen, I say, well, this is all a big joke. Prayer doesn't do anything. There's a question asked as in regards to kids. Do you tell kids to pray for someone that's sick? I have a friend, their name is Freddie, they're sick, they have cancer, 4th stage, it's metabolized, and I want this class of kids because we all know you guys, when kids pray, it's pure prayer, it'll help, please pray. On the one hand, you're teaching the kids that it's a real life skill to pray. This is what we do in times of need. On the other hand, what happens when the person dies? How do you explain to a child that your prayers were great, they were powerful, they had lots of positive effects that we can't see? We don't know what they did. The kids see that prayer doesn't work, and that's bad education. Unfortunately, we live in the same realm. We pray because we want it to do something. We want an accomplishment. We meditate because we want a certain effect on ourselves. And the issue is that we're starting with the wrong disposition. We're starting with the idea that obviously this is what's supposed to happen. We have an expectation that's unreal. And therefore it's important to ground ourselves with who we are. What is our makeup? What is the effect going on? If we can understand it, we'll hopefully not have expectations. We'll just have understandings. We'll have hopes maybe, but not expectations for the thing. So he opens up with this question, what is an average person? Most of us say we're average people. You know, the average person is if you take all the people in the world and you put them together and you make a general average, it encompasses the biggest majority of people. Yes, you'll have some people on one end, some people on the other end, but in general, it'll cover most of the people. In school, they call it the Bell average. They try to capture the bell curve, right? They try to capture the most students as possible. You have the too bright, which fall off one end, and then you have the kids who don't belong in that class because of not getting it, and they fall off the other end. But at least we're capturing the general middle. And there's issues with that. Because in essence, you're not targeting any kid. You're targeting where every kid should be. And not necessarily any kids there. Because if you have 50 people that are 100 and 50 people that are 0, your average is 50, yet you don't have a single kid that's a 50. So you haven't caught anybody. So here he's asking, what is the average person? What makes up an average person? You're trying to say, I'm a righteous, how do you be a good person? Well, you know, for someone that's extremely intellectual to be studying addition, that's not good. For someone who doesn't know how to talk and doesn't know numbers, for them to be studying addition, that's amazing. Like, how are you doing that? You know, you look at every person at who they are. So how do you say, I'm going to be a good person? If I'm great, then to say I'm going to be a good person is a downgrade. If I'm average, being a good person is an increase. Coming out of a holiday, I want to take it with me. Well, what are you trying to take? What is it that you're working on? What is it that we're increasing in? Someone who's a spiritual giant, to say that they're going to spend 10 minutes a day in meditation, well, you just went from 3 hours last year, and now you're down to 10 minutes. That's a pretty bad increase. But somebody who's never meditated before, that could be too much. Start with 2 minutes. Or how do you think I'm going to be able to do 10? You're going to see it doesn't work. It doesn't calm you. It makes you more aggravated. You're sitting there saying, is it 10 minutes? I can't believe I have to do this for 10 minutes. How is this going to work? So you have to figure out where we're starting from, that we're trying to get to. And therefore the Tanya starts with the opening line, what is a Benoni? And he brings proofs both ways. He says, first of all, a Benoni is someone, we know that the soul is sworn when it comes down to be righteous. So we know we're striving to be righteous. On the other hand, we know from other verses that we're told, look at ourselves as wicked. And the question becomes, should we look at ourselves as wicked or we're striving to be righteous? Or is it both? We're really wicked people trying to strive to be righteous. And then the next question is, why do we want to look at ourselves as wicked? That just makes us melancholy, it makes us depressed. It doesn't take us to a good place. And theoretically, we want to be in a good place. You could break it further. Why is a soul swearing to be good? A soul is good. It's not like our souls are evil. When we decided, let's just pretend for a second I got mad at God, woke up and I didn't sleep well, my kids woke me up, heater broke, house was cold, not only that, someone threw a ball through the window. I wake up and say, God, that's it, it's over. And I pick up a milk and meat sandwich, a cheese meat sandwich, and I say, I'm eating this not because I enjoy it, not because I don't believe in this, I believe in this, I'm eating it just to rebel. That's not my soul rebelling. Souls can't do that. Souls cannot rebel against their source. Souls are spiritual entities. So if we believe that prayer is a spiritual connection and certain things of saying is a spiritual connection and actions are spiritual connections, if they're mitzvot, etc., our soul will not break those connections. It's our being that breaks those connections. So why should the soul swear to do good? What's it accomplishing? It's like when you go to a bunch of kids in the class and you say, all right, who pulled the prank? And a kid in the back raises his hand, it was me. All right, everyone else lost their recess. You can keep your recess. Well, what are you accomplishing? You know who did it, and you're punishing everybody else. So why get the soul to swear to be good? So firstly, of course we need the good to swear to be good, because when we're in a state of good, or in a state of a powerful spiritual state, we need to swear to strengthen that spirituality, to enforce what we're feeling. When someone at the end of Simchat Torah, and they're in a great mood and they're happy, and they say, this year I'm going to meditate for 10 more minutes a day, and I swear to it, what they're doing is they're increasing the fortification of that resolution. They're saying this is the way it's going to be. A soul, what is a soul? A soul is something that's coming down from a spiritual plane. If you want to call it a spiritual high, it is the spiritual high. They're coming down from essence of spirituality, godliness, into a physical world, from every distraction of spirituality possible. And on the way down, they're saying, before I lose it, I'm swearing this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be good. And good in spiritual terms is connected. I'm going to be connected. So the first note is that when coming out of a holiday, when coming out of a spiritual protection, not to lose it so quickly, we swear, we take on a resolution. And instead of to swear, we make a resolution, a commitment to do something, even when we're not feeling it. Because obviously when we're feeling it, it's easy, but it's when we lose the feeling that becomes hard. When we pray at the end of Simchat Torah and we're happy and everyone's singing, we join in. At the end of Yom Kippur, and the Elah, everyone catches in. You feel the fire, you get caught up. It's great. The next morning, you're tired. It's over. And that's where the resolution at that moment will carry us through on the next day. Yes, I don't feel it right now, but I committed to do it and I'm gonna keep doing it. And that immediately identifies what the average person is. An average person is someone that has swayings. They have swayings. It doesn't mean externally they have swayings. It means internally they have swayings. In other words, you can have somebody that every day they get up. Every day as soon as they get up, they meditate for a few minutes. After they get out of bed, they pray. After they pray, they do a little bit of reading. So they get themselves ready for the day. Then they go out, and they go halfway through the day, and that's when they call their sponsor, let's say, and they have a good conversation halfway through the day because they know at that point they need it. And after they call their sponsor, they have a little meditation session where they have this whole setup where they're spiritually fit throughout every single day. And you ask, that person's off, that person's great. It doesn't mean that person never has a low. It doesn't mean that person never has a high. They just have a structure that can take every swaying they have of spiritual emotions. If it's a rough day, they're going to handle it. If it's a great day, it's not going to overwhelm them. It's not going to blow them out of proportions. Every day is going to be fit with this structure. And hopefully the structure slowly increase them to a better, more solid, more increasing place. But they have a structure fit for it. And the same thing here. We hit this spiritual high where we spiritually cleanse ourselves, we feel reconnected. We set in place a structure to maintain on the outside what we're not feeling on the inside. In other words, as he goes through the first chapter, which will go further slowly but surely, he identifies a middle person, someone who maybe even if they are on the outside perfect, on the inside they're not. And he gives an example. He says there's a person named Rabbi, who was a great sage, quoted in the Talmud, I believe it's once every 4 pages. An extremely famous person. And Rabbi, as he was passing, said, I think I was a Benoni. I think I was an average person. And the student asked him, he said, if you're the average person, then the rest of us are a lost cause. Because you, who made it to every 4th page of the Talmud, you're pretty up there. I'm your student, I'm not up there. And I'm not even in the book. I mean, there's different levels here. How are you a middle person? And later, in other books, they answer that Rabbi wasn't a middle person. But how could he consider himself a middle person? How did he see that? He said, because not every day was perfect. Every day I performed perfectly. But inside, not every day was perfect. Some days were spiritually, I went, this is going to be great. And other days, okay, I got to do it again. And that's the way it is. That's what made him a potentially middle person. That's what made him potentially be such a middle person. Because not every day was perfect. But he had the perfect structure to maintain that. So seemingly also we look at ourselves and we say, so we're better than middle people. We're more than half. We do a lot of good every day. We don't steal. We definitely don't kill, at least not on the weekends. We got this structure in place. But the answer is that that's just the outcome. It's not the root. The root is that the average person is average. We struggle. Every person puts on a great facade, and then we look at them. How are they holding it together? And how are they holding it together? And how are they doing so? The truth is, they're looking at us saying, how are you doing so well? You look so calm. You look so put together. We know your life is falling apart. How are you doing this? And then we're looking at them saying, oh my gosh, how on earth does this work? I remember the first time I was dating Bela, my wife, and I remember coming back and saying, I can't believe this. She's working 4 jobs, and she's doing this, and she's doing that. I'm a nobody. I goof around. I'm a single guy. I have fun. If I want to wake up late, I wake up late. If I wake up early, I wake up early. My friend turned to me and said, the same resume she wrote, she's also just a young girl partying her life off. They said, I'm sure she looks at your resume and says you have like 16 different things that you're doing, and they're all this. And yeah, at the end of the day, you're both party animals, and when you get married, you're going to become this couple, and that's just the way it's going to work. I don't know if party animal is the right term. But you both have your things you do. You put together this fancy resume, but it's not necessarily who you are. It's your facade. And that is the definition of what a middle person is. So, and in truth, the book goes through, to ending thought, there's 3 different definitions we have of righteous, wicked, and middle. One way is that when you go to court and you go for a judgment, let's say you're arguing about where your property ends. You're both mowing your lawn, and your neighbor says, you're not mowing this part of the lawn. You're saying, well, that's because it's your part of the lawn. The neighbor says, not only do I got to water your lawn, I got to mow your lawn too, and it's not my lawn, it's your lawn. Whose lawn? And you go to court, you end up in court. And the court says, well, the end of the day is that you're right and you're wrong. In essence, what they're saying is that you're righteous and you're wicked. But what they're not defining you. They're saying, in this specific case, it's your property and it's not your property, so take care of it. It doesn't define who you are. It defines the one case brought up. The second place we have judgments is a yearly judgment. We say Rosh Hashanah is like this scale. You go for scaling and you say, how many good deeds do you have and how many evil deeds do you have? And overall, are you good or are you evil? Again, it doesn't define who you are. It defines the outcome. If someone doesn't have temptations for things and someone else has temptations for things, and neither of them succumb to this temptation, are they truthfully equal? They're not truthfully equal. One person worked an entire year to be able to have that. The other person didn't. If one person's naturally inclined towards inspiration and godliness, and another person's not, and yet they both prayed equally that year, how are they equal? One strove, they worked, they put effort into it, they grew in so many different frameworks that are unmeasurable in the framework of prayer. In other words, you both prayed an hour a day. And the other one, whatever. You could say the same thing in academics. Someone who gets math and they get 85s on their test, and someone who doesn't get it and strove to get the 85, that person in the long run, it will show up the work they put in, but it won't show up on that test. So the yearly grading scale, while it doesn't just say, well, you did one action wrong, so you're wicked, or you did one action right, you're righteous, it takes a year into account. It also only goes so deep. And the true depth is the self-inspection that we do. And in that self-inspection, most people are average people. We don't all struggle in the same things, but we all have struggles. We all have imbalances that we're trying to balance. Some of us balance it and we come out with these perfect facades, and some of us don't balance it. And the real question that he's asking here is, are we addressing it or are we just balancing it? We have an imbalance deep within us. Let's say it's an anger imbalance. So we don't lose our cool in front of anybody. But then we get into the car, we drive around the block, and we scream our heads off. Are we addressing the imbalance? Or are we just balancing the imbalance? Are we just balancing the imbalance? We're not trying to correct or address where the cavity is. It's like someone has a toothache and they're taking Tylenol to keep the pain down. They're not fixing the issue. They're just numbing the issue. They're balancing an imbalance. And the goal here is to address, what is this middle person? Where is our middle? Where is our average? And how can we balance that average? Or how can we work on raising the bar on that average? And how can we bring the spirituality that we feel at the high points into our day-to-day lives? Not our spiritual lows, but into our day-to-day lives, so our spiritual lows are also infused. I'm going to pause here though.